Set everything down, finish your dishes, and then sit at the dining table, please.
Why? You guys are doing something. Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna do this. Are you finished your dinner yet?
not yet.
Smokers as patients. That's just my
Give me
preference.
like
I mean,
10 minutes.
No, because these guys, I'm gonna lose these guys. They'll like just finish their dinner. They're gonna start going out. They're gonna start doing this
we
and
ask
that.
them if they're willing to
Okay.
make
You
a
can
lifestyle
eat.
change, and then we ask them if they
You can
watch
eat while
the
you're
video.
supervising.
If they have it,
Okay.
we will either send it to them on a DVD.
Is that
or
okay?
we will
Sit
tell them
down
to
at
go
the
on
table
internet.
if you've done your dishes.
So the patient
Yeah, go.
makes the appointment, they watch the video before they present to our office. On the first visit, they're going to do a consult with me. I'm going to go over their case history. I'm going to examine them. And then I'm going to give the patient our care plan. We have 4 different care plans: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And the cost per care plan ranges anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. I don't accept insurance. I have no issue and never had an issue with charging a patient a fair fee, a professional fee. You get people better, nobody else can get better. I believe you deserve a professional fee of all something. I do take issue and have always taken issue with doctors out there, and there are a number of them, who brag about how much they're making on each patient, never giving any care to helping the patient. It's all about the money. It's all about the money to you just frankly turn off. It won't be of any use. Second visit, we will do some therapies with the patient. We do PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field therapy, we do laser therapy, Hackelmed therapy, it's German engineered, electrical therapy, biochemical and bioelectric combined in one unit. And then I'll just ask the patient, this is my reported findings, folks. They have the therapy, they come in, I ask, do you have any questions? Yes or no? And then I'll just ask them, which plan have you chosen? Which plan would you like to do? Bronze, silver, gold, or platinum? They'll tell me. You see, the key, as I mentioned earlier, is to give the patient a strong enough reason why. Why should they be your patient? This is where the video beforehand helps them. And then when they come back in for the third visit, they pay for the care plan and we give care. It's not any more difficult than that. There are some doctors out there who will say, don't give the patient too much information. I think that. So they'll say, you know, when the patient comes in, no, don't give them any information on diet. Don't do that. I do give them as much information as possible. You'll see that on the video. The more information you give the patient, the more they trust you, the more they accept you. I've had patients where they've watched my video, they've changed their diet for a couple of weeks. They'll come in to see on their first appointment, they'll say, you know, I knew what you were talking about because I changed my diet. I'm eating autoimmune paleo. I feel so much better, and I want to continue to feel better. I want to be your patient. So that's my attitude in the fact that you cannot give a patient too much information. Now, I'm going to look at their blood work. I'm going to look at all of their findings. And so I'm not going to give them recommendations as to which PRL product I think that fit them. That is a part of my plan and my protocol, and that will change. And that's what I'm charging for, my expertise. To get people better, nobody else can get better. I deserve to make a professional income. Like I said, I don't have an issue with that. Never have had an issue.
Not exactly the same.
So with these patients, I utilize in my practice blood work, genetic testing, heavy metal and mineral testing. I'll use something called the one test. Also, if I don't use the one test, it's the organic acid test. Food sensitivity testing. I don't utilize food sensitivity testing because if you have enough HCl in your stomach, I mean, Dr. Marshall always said that. Not an issue. Think of a dog. A dog can eat another dog's defecation. They don't get sick. Why is that? Because they're loaded with HCl. So the whole leaky gut thing, all I do is give patients HCl HDL, HCl activator, and digest. Tell them to take the digest with the meal and take the HCl, HCl activator after the meal. Tell them, look, as you get older, your body will produce less hydrochloric acid. And so this is why you're going to need to take this the rest of your life. And naturally, and it's on my videos, I explain it to people, I utilize muscle testing or QRA. Again, many of my friends utilize the O-ring testing. I don't. I use straight arm testing. Look, to me, it's energy. So you just have to do what you feel comfortable. Well, let's talk a little about the blood work and what I look for and how we look. We do a complete metabolic panel. A complete metabolic panel will test your glucose levels, your gut function, as you're looking at albumin, globulin, looking at chloride. You look at the adrenal function with potassium and sodium levels, kidney function, creatinine, and blood urea and nitrogen. Liver function, you're not only looking at your liver enzymes, AST and ALT, but you're also looking at red blood cells. You're looking at the lipid panel. And we do a complete lipid panel, looking at cholesterol, triglycerides, cholesterol HDL ratio. And like it says there, the cholesterol HDL ratio shows you your risk of suffering a heart attack. Above 3.0, there are other heart-related tests that I do. I won't get into it here. That's not the purpose of this seminar, but we really take a close look at people. We do a CBC with auto differential that breaks down the red and white blood cells. Very important. Again, that's what I'm going to see with their autoimmunity. Then we do a complete thyroid panel. TSH, free T3, free T4, total T4, free thyroxine intake, T3 uptake. This is big. The TPO and TGB antibodies to see if they are suffering from an autoimmune thyroid. An autoimmune thyroid means that insulin attacks their body. And a TPO and TGB antibodies should not be greater than 0. It should be 0. Thyroid binding globulin, these are the taxi cabs that take the thyroid hormone to the cell. And I will say if you have estrogen issues or you have decreased liver function, that's going to increase the thyroid binding globulin. And that is going to decrease thyroid hormone because the thyroid binding globulins are holding on to that thyroid hormone. And then, like I said, reverse T3. The following tests, if they're not included on a complete metabolic panel, we run them. Uric acid, again, looking at inflammation along with homocysteine. Normal homocysteine level should be 6 to 7. And uric acid, homocysteine, C-reactive protein also looks at inflammation. Transferrin and fibrogen tell me about the patient's liver function. 25-OHD and 125-OHD of the vitamin D is going to tell me storage form versus active form. I'm going to get into this. If you have a BDR genetic mutation, your vitamin D levels may never increase. Total iron binding capacity, serum iron. The serum iron is not already on the CNP. And hemoglobin A1C. Hemoglobin A1C is your blood glucose over the course of 3 months. So that's a little better window to adjust your blood glucose level. So what am I looking for? Blood work. Back on a patient. I kind of alluded to it, but there are lab ranges versus functional or optimal range. So for instance, the lab range of the AST or ALT, the liver enzymes, lab range is 0 to 40. The functional range is 10 to 26. So the patient could have a lab range of say, 38. The physician, the MD, would say, you're fine. I'm saying, no, you're not fine. There's issues here. I know Dr. Weatherby has addressed past few webinars. I do get emails from PRL, so blood chem software, and she's gone over a lot of this. I'm just giving you my take on it. And you can take it however you like and mold it into whichever way you would like to use your practice. So blood glucose is very important. 85 to 99 is the optimal range. 84 or below is hypoglycemia, and I make sure the patient is eating an hour or two. Every hour or two, they're having something to eat. brain and nervous system need two things to survive: fuel and activation. Fuel comes in the form of oxygen and glucose. This is why blood glucose is so important. Hemoglobin A1C, as I mentioned, is blood glucose level over the course of 3 months. The sodium and potassium level tells me about about the adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are your stress glands. Very important, especially in regards to chronic conditions and cortisol levels and inflammation. That's very important. I may do what's called an ASI, the test for the adrenal glands, adrenal stress index. I rarely do it anymore. I just assume the vast majority of chronic patients have an issue with potassium and sodium, their adrenal glands, so I'll put them on Adrenavan or usually Adrenavan. But I also may use adaptogen R3. This depends. Chloride, protein, albumin, globulin. Again, this tells me about the amount of HCl in the stomach. I put everybody on HCl activator and digest, as I mentioned earlier. AST and ALT are liver function, so I use liver ND or Max ND. Red blood cells also tell me about liver function. So if they're really anemic, I may go to Erythropro. They have a thyroid issue. Obviously, I'm looking at using Thyroben or Xenostat. And one thing I'll say about the Xenostat is natural iodine, not synthetic. There are doctors out there telling patients, look, if you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, if you are autoimmune thyroid, your immune system is attacking the thyroid, do not take iodine. I have put patients on Xenostat, and I've never had an issue. So red blood cells, lipid panel, again, tells me about the liver. C-reactive protein and homocysteine, very important, tells me about their inflammation. Again, homocysteine levels should be 6 to 7, some homocysteine. But I've seen patients that need 25, 30. Vitamin D. Let me just say that with the chronic condition patients, I like to see their vitamin D level at 80 to 100. If they come in and at 30, it's not here. But if they can't seem to get it up, I'm looking for a genetic mutation. I'll talk about that here in a minute. That's it, genetic testing. So this is what I'm also looking for in my patient care. I use 23andMe, and I plug it into Livrello.com. And you're going to get certain categories. You're going to get allergy, clotting factors. I don't really do anything with the first three, but when I get to detox, what you're going to see is the green, yellow, and red. Green is good. There's 2 healthy genes, one from mom, one from dad. Yellow's not so good. Either got a genetic mutation from mom or dad. And red is really bad. That's called homozygous. Heterozygous. Red is called homozygous. And you've got 2 bad genes. You have 2 gene mutations. You've got 1 bad gene from mom, 1 bad gene from dad. So if they have any red in the detox category, I want to make sure to support their liver, their kidney, and their function. If they're gluten intolerant, meaning that there are specific genes for eating gluten, I tell them right up front, you can never have gluten again. IgA, IgE, IgG, this tells me about your immune system if you're autoimmune. So you'll see it here on the genetic testing also. Any red under those categories. Methylation is vital for every bodily function. We're going to talk about it here shortly. Mitochondrial function. So this is where, from a QRA standpoint, you're supporting that energy point. And so there are some things that I use to support mitochondrial function. That is very important. And then there is also some genes in relationship to the thyroid.
They're both the same.
Let's talk about the MTHFR gene defect starting out the block. Methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. A MTHFR gene defect can increase your risk of a variety of autoimmune disorders, cancers, stroke, heart disease, IBS, migraine, thyroid. I mean, it covers the gamut. It really does. Which is why it's important to address it. See, there are more genes than just the MTHFR that need to be checked. That's why I use 23andMe. But let's start at the beginning. Let's just briefly discuss methylation and what's actually happening with methylation. I mean, do you ever wonder why all of a sudden somebody out of the blue develops a neurodegenerative disorder? And granted, and I'm going to address this shortly, Dr. Marshall really showed the world that neurodegenerative disorders are caused by severe or underlying chronic infection. But yeah, why? Heart disease, autoimmune conditions, stroke, or even cancer. Many times because they express a mutated gene. Well, how do you express mutated genes like autoimmune or MS, Parkinson's, or heart disease, cancer? And Dr. Marshall always talks about this. Where I got this from. Cancer depleted methyl groups. So if you deplete your body's methyl groups, that's how mutated genes are expressed. Then you would have to have color methyl groups in our body depleted. And Dr. Marshall hammers this home all the time. This white death, that's what I call it. White sugar, white flour, white salt, bad oil, trans fatty acids, hydrogenated oil, herbicides and pesticides that are loaded onto our produce, junk food, sugary drinks with high fructose corn syrup and caffeine, GMO foods. And then we're living in an age of high emotional stress. Well, that's just a recipe for disaster. And this is why there are just so many people out there that need our help. My office is big. We could all have a waiting list practice, and we still would not be addressing everyone. So this is why methylation is so important. It has to do with DNA and RNA synthesis, turning on and off genes. It has to do with brain chemicals, the neurotransmitters, which are very important. Very important. Dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, GABA. It looks at the hormonal breakdown of estrogen and testosterone. It regards to the creation of immune cells like natural killer cells and T cells. It helps in the formation of the protective or myelin sheath around the nerves. And it helps detox the body. I mean, it's vital. And so when you have formulation it's post of chronic conditions, for lack of a better term, autoimmune disorders, thyroid, cancer, diabetes, neurological disorders, PMS, ovarian cyst, PCOS, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, even Asperger's, autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, insomnia, miscarriages, depression, heart disease, stroke. It's a list of 10. So here are some of the other genes that we test for. I mentioned to you about the MTHFR gene defect, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, causes a 30 to 70% reduction in methylation. And I myself am C677T homozygous. So I lost 70% of my ability to methylate. Good. Why it's important. My immune system taking supplements. And let me just say on a supplement, it's just that. It's a supplement to a healthy diet. And Dr. Marshall has always said that. And, eventually I tell my patients, you don't need to take supplements every day, but you'll take 2 or 3 times a week to a bulk. That's so. FOLR2, this primarily supports the immune system, the placenta, the thymus, bone marrow. COMT, this is a neurotransmitter biomarker. This is really important for neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and acetylcholine. CMOT is also involved in estrogen metabolism. So if you have patients with hormonal issues, MAOA and MAOB, these are very important. MAOA is in regards to serotonin. MAOB is in regards to dopamine. These are neurotransmitter markers, and shows can help with depression and quality of life. GAD1 and 2, this has to do with the conversion of excitatory glutamate to GABA, inhibitory GABA. If you have a patient with they're not sleeping or they have low muscle tone or spasticity, they probably have the GAD1 or 2 gene defect. AHCY 1, 2, and 19 has to do with decreased activity in homocysteine and glutathione. Glutathione is the body's major antioxidant. SOD has to do with neurological disorders and mitochondrial function. And this is what I mentioned earlier, the vitamin D gene defect, the VDR, and I have both of those. So if I have a patient that's taking vitamin D and they're not absorbing it on the vitamin oil, you might want to give them vitamin K. So we do blood work, we do genetic testing. We also look at some other things. We'll look at heavy metals. We utilize an analytical research lab at arlok.com, and we're looking for mercury and lead, aluminum, nickel, arsenic, cadmium. We do mineral testing because those heavy metals can do the minerals. So that same heavy metal test where we're looking for all these heavy metals will show us the minerals also through analytical research. And minerals are important. Zinc is very important for T4 to T3 conversion. Low levels of selenium can cause activity of T3. And mineral ratios are also very important. The calcium-potassium ratio should be 4:1. It's called the thyroid ratio because it's role in regulating thyroid activity. The adrenal, there's something called HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Sodium magnesium ratio, sodium potassium ratio, also very important. So that's big, don't you think? I mean, it has a lot to do with what's going on with our patients. We may use the one test, an optimal nutritional evaluation test. What it does, it shows organic acids, amino acids, oxidative stress in the patient. Many times they'll just simply run an organic acid test. I won't run the one test. I do run the one test if there's depression or anxiety that's not responding, or insomnia that isn't responding, or extreme fatigue and that's not responding, or fibromyalgia. This is my way of handling the chronic condition. I call it the Dr. J protocol. You want to decrease inflammation. You want to detoxify the body. You want to support the immune system. Those are the big three. That's how I get a lot of people better. So how do we do that? How do we decrease inflammation and detoxify? Well, number one, the patient has to be hydrated. So I muscle test for hydration. Now, there are friends of mine that use little vials for hydration. Test a lot of these things. In the state of Wisconsin, we're not allowed to use vials, so I don't have to test it and ask the body. So you got to make sure the patient's hydrated, they're drinking enough water. Dr. Marshall hammers this home forever. And good quality water. pH, I mean, this is how I got onto pH with the patient, testing the first morning urine after 5 a.m. So huge. I can't say enough good things about it. But if the patient has issues with radiation, EMF, radon, or natural gas, or they have chronic infections, whether they be bacterial, viral, parasitic, fungus, or mold, their pH is not going to be in this order. So the first thing I do is I look at their hydration levels, make sure they're getting enough water, eating a proper diet. Then I immediately go looking at radiation, the issues that's causing for them, and how do I remediate radiation? I know PRL has a number of products, but I also use their EFA oil, and I also use their green. That helps a lot.
Put it on there, okay? Just put whatever you want.
Infections, again, I muscle test for that. look at the PRL kit, all of the immune boosters in the red. What do I do? How do I narrow it down? I self-muscle test. So you can muscle test exactly what's going through every single one. I picked this up from another doctor. Now this half, top half or bottom half, is this row or that row, and I self-muscle test, narrow it down, then I send it to the patient. Heavy metals, chemicals, toxins, then that has to be eliminated, and then you address the other. So hydration, you're not going to change the pH if there's radiation or infection, so you do have to get the first. Then I'll come back with pH. Same thing with heavy metals, toxins, and look at autoimmune. Diet, so very important. Can't say that enough. And these are some of the products that I use. And honestly, if you did the first 5 or 6 here, with every patient that walked into your office, you would see 90% of the cases get better. For energy, I use allomanin or P2 or D-ribose. Liver, I'll not only use liver ND, which I go to quite a bit now, I'll utilize MAX CNP. The stomach, I usually start off with really severe patients with gastrovent. Usually there's a H. pylori issue. So I'll put them on gastrovent for 6 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks. Just like Dr. Marshall used to recommend, open a capsule, put it in warm water, drink it down before a meal. Then I'll move them to HCl, ACL activator, and digest. And you've probably heard, especially with thyroid patients, they should be eating cruciferous vegetables. It's called cortigen. It's ridiculous. If you have enough HCl, you should be eating healthy foods. As I mentioned earlier, I do use a lot of adrenaline and adaptogen R3 for adrenal glands. Everybody is just stressed with that. Inflammation, turmeric and delphinol. You important. Again, that's that whole red section. Thyroid support, I address the thyroid then, just that. And parasitic infections, huge. Biofilm, allocytes. So all very, very important in the protocol. And like I said, you want to address sleep, you want to address hair falling out, and weight loss. I'll just cover this briefly for you. This is direct out of Dr. Marshall's playbook. They're not sleeping, and they have trouble getting to sleep or getting up between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. They're seeing an issue with the gallbladder. And it says the above because I didn't really address the gallbladder earlier, but I will use gallbladder ND or Filavent. If they're waking up at 1 to 3 a.m., it's a liver issue. This is from Chinese medicine. Then you're going to look at Max ND or liver ND. So sometimes say 1:30 in the morning, I'll just have to liver ND. I usually don't use Max ND. I do test it with the patient because that will give some people energy, just so you're aware of that. 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is a lung issue, so Filavent or allocidin. Usually I go to allocidin with that one. And honestly, 5 to 7, you have people on HCl, ACL activator, that's not really an issue. Well, if the hair's falling out, it's either an issue with methylation, and if that's the case, I'll put on folinic acid, not folate, folic acid, folinic. And or they may have liver fluke, so there may be a liver issue. So you want to look at their liver. About weight loss, as I mentioned earlier, patients stick to their diet, and I do nag them about the autoimmune paleo diet. What is it? Meat, fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts. That's it. I tell them, look, you only got to do this for 6 months. The reason is I tell them 6 months because that way they're not bummed. They got to do this for the rest of their life. Down the road, they know they can cheat a little bit, but a lot of times, if you can get people to eat a healthy diet for 6 months, what I've found is they'll go back to eating crappy, and guess what? They don't want to eat crappy. So they just felt too good when they ate really well. We put all of our patients, as I mentioned, on an autoimmune paleo diet. Many of them lose 40 to 50 pounds. They're not even trying. They just change their lifestyle. They just change their diet. They quit alcohol. They quit refined sugar. They quit caffeine. Eat fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts. Mud pack. I always liked mud pack. I utilize mud packs. I can't say enough good things about mud packs. We all know interference fields and sedate organs and glands. I don't know of anyone else out there besides CRL that I utilize mud packs. How do I know if a patient needs mud packs? That's where muscle testing comes in. That's where we do our aid. Water, we addressed it. Dr. Marshall hits this home constantly. So half your body weight, not tap water. Pink salt, I can't say enough good things about pink salt. I love pink salt. Again, this is all Dr. Marshall 101. This is right out of his playbook. Bad. Year of his past. Just think about it. Coffee enemas. I've never done a coffee enema until I met Dr. Marshall. When I first started coffee enemas, I did a coffee enema every single day for 6 months. It helped so much. One thing I haven't mentioned to this point is I suffer from MS. Diagnosed medically, visually both potential. And yeah, coffee enemas really, really help. So yeah, I recommend it to all my patients, and it's in my books. And PRL has great coffee. Change your diet. I tell that to everyone. I hammer it home. I can't say it enough. Dental work. Dr. Marshall addressed this. He had dentists on his show and webinar, and it has to be addressed. You can have a dental infection. It's never going away until it gets addressed. EMF, I talked about that earlier. Radiation. You just don't get radiation from Wi-Fi. There's microwave towers everywhere. There's you get radiation on a plane. Here in Wisconsin, we have issues with radon. I just had a patient today. I told her she has to address radiation, and she lives under this huge power line. She moved there 6 years ago, and she said that's what my health problems are. So it's affecting people's health. You have to make them aware of it. So in closing, this is us, Neurometabolic Supergroup. We're on Facebook. Neurometabolic Supergroup. You can go to KX Chronic Pain. KX Fibro is our message board. And for those of you who are chiropractors, because we do limit it to chiropractors, we offer a 90-day free trial on our message board. It's a phenomenal tool to help doctors. Email my staff person, Emily. She's at johnsonsupergroup@gmail.com. That's johnsonsupergroup.com. Or, I'm sorry, johnsonsupergroup@gmail.com. This is my email, mljohnson@askdrjohnson.com. I get a lot of emails, of course, a week, hundreds. Again, I want to come back to it and keep hammering it home. With the amount of viewership that I have on my videos, think about it. Just my thyroid and cancer videos, that's 1 million views. 1 million views. And I get hundreds of emails from patients. I'm looking at my email right now. My desk. Our new office is the Optimal Health, Stem Cell, and Wellness Institute. We doubled the size of our space. A little background. The reason I got into stem cells it really helped me with my MS.
Hey, please don't swear, okay?
So, you know, I can't tell you enough. You gotta start making videos. And yeah, you might get a bad time, or you might not think it's perfect. Just get it done. You know, don't wait for perfect, because perfect is never going to be enough. It's just not. So get it up there. I mean, that thyroid video I have, folks, that has 700,000 views. I added to that video for a whole year. So the beginning of 2012, in January, I put up my first thyroid video. It wasn't great. It was horrible. If you look at that video, the one that's up there now, I can't take it down and change it anymore because I have too many views. But I would change it once a month, every month, until December 2012, so that that's like the 12th video. And then once I got it where it was okay, which I think that video is just okay, it took off like wildfire. People are looking for this information. I'm in the process of making a new thyroid video where I'm incorporating the genetic mutations. For instance, if you have MTHFR gene defect, 60% of T4 is converted to T3 in the liver, 20% in the gut. So, it's not going to function the way it should if you've got an MTHFR defect or if you have an FUT2 gene defect. If you have an FUT2 gene defect, that 20% conversion, T4 to T3 in the gut, isn't going to work. So it's something to be aware of. As I mentioned earlier, the VDR gene defect, CONT has to do with not only neurotransmitter production, but also estrogen. And, you have patients who are depressed. MAOA, that has to do with serotonin metabolism. MAOB has to do with dopamine if you have a Parkinson's patient. MAOB, again, may be a factor, and you need to support that. So just insights in regards to that. So if you have any questions on it, you're welcome to email me. The whole point is that I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. I do try to get back to everybody. If I don't get back to you, nothing personal. It's just that I'm really busy. May have fallen through the cracks. So just email me again. My spam filter set pretty tight just because of the volume of people that I see. So that's huge. So ML Johnson at AskDrJohnson.com. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen. Hopefully you got something out of this. Remember, I can't say this enough, that you're going to make sure they're hydrated. You have to address the fact that they have some type of infection. You have to eliminate that. Whether it be bacterial or virus, fungus, parasite, mold. They also are going to have issues of radiation. You have to remediate that, eliminate it as much as possible. And then, only then, move on to heavy metal chelation, because those organs have to be functioning. Toxins, chemicals, remove those. And I address all of it on my videos. You can watch them. Finally, addressing organ optimal. So I'm Dr. Michael Johnson. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I appreciate you being here. ML Johnson at AskDrJohnson.com. Again, if you're a chiropractor, you're welcome to a 90-day free trial on our message board. Metabolic Supergroup, great group of people, tons of information. And thank you, and have a wonderful good night.
Go downstairs, see if you can find some. There are 3 big bags of it.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for detailing your energetic approach to address many of the chronic issues confronting America today. Which, not coincidentally, brings me to the next item, the QRA training schedule. There's a Level 1 seminar coming up in Fort Lauderdale at the end of July. There'll be Level 1 seminars in Los Angeles, August 12th and 13th, and in Washington, D.C. and Denver on August 26th and 27th. The Quantum Summit will be held in Austin, Texas, November 2nd through the 5th, and all the latest QRA information is available on prlabs.com, in our monthly newsletter, or from your account executive. Fiber, or a lack of it in the American diet, is a big deal. Your fiber intake is directly related to the health of your digestive system, specifically intestinal health. And I'm sure everyone knows how intestinal issues can affect your overall feeling of well-being. To keep your colon happy, this month's special is Psyllium Fiber, formerly known as Cleanse Cap. Buy 6, get 1 free through July 31st. And I know it's already been a week since the 4th of July, but I couldn't resist. Tonight's red, white, and blue special includes Adrenaven and D3 Serum. Buy 6, get 1 free through Friday. Thank you for joining us tonight. Be sure to tune in next month as PRL sponsors the MSF Practitioner Webinar Series. I'm Dr. Gary Pearson. Good night.
I wanted to go to the bathroom before I go.
it.